Story 1. I used to deliver hotshot freight across the Great Plains, Minnesota area. One night around 2 a.m. I was hauling across North Dakota, trying to reach Montana by morning. I was delivering a particularly valuable tractor part that a farm desperately needed for the following day. I began to notice some highway hypnosis sneaking up on me, but it didn't really bother me because I'd been through it hundreds of times before. Anyone who has driven across North Dakota knows that it is incredibly flat. Like, really flat. There also tends to be very straight and long roads. It's somewhat easy to see things on the road that are far away, even at night. I noticed something long on the road, spanning my entire lane, approximately half a mile in front of me. I slowed down a little and prepared to move into the opposite lane, thinking it was some retread off a blown tire. As I got closer, I noticed it was two people, laying head to toe across the entire lane. I swerved into the other lane, successfully avoiding them, and came to an almost complete stop. But they didn't move, not an inch. I was just about to back up and check on them when I remembered a story that an old graybeard colleague of mine told me. He told me that in certain remote areas, people will lie down in the middle of the road and wait for a car or truck to stop and see what's going on. At that point, the road layers, along with whoever else is hiding in the nearby bushes, will beat the shit out of the driver and steal his vehicle, leaving him in the middle of nowhere. I decided not to back up, and when the two people in the road saw me put my truck back in gear and drive away, they both got up and walked toward the shoulder. I called the police and explained what happened, but we were so far away from civilization that I doubt anything came of it. Story 2. The worst thing I've ever experienced was around 1996. I was team driving, semi, with another individual. We picked up our load and scaled it out. I opted to drive the first shift. I drove in solid rain from Detroit, Michigan to just shy of St. Louis, Mo. We swapped out at a rest area and caught our logbooks up. I was tired after driving for 10 hours all night in the rain. One thing I'll never forget was before I started driving that night, the other driver, we'll call him John, said to me before going to sleep, was, "If we get killed, I'll come and haunt you." He said it with a smile and zipped up the curtain to sleep. After swapping seats, I zipped up the curtain and put a movie on to fall asleep to. My cousin Vinny. The thought that crossed my mind often while in the bunk was what I would do if we were, say, going over an embankment or a cliff. My best decision was to hit the deck, get as low as possible, and pray. While watching the movie, I started drifting off to sleep. It was maybe 45 minutes later I woke up to John saying, "Shit, hang on." I could tell that we were weaving or whatever. "I just knew something wasn't right," he yelled again, and I hit the floor praying hard. Were we going over a cliff? I couldn't see up front because the curtain was zipped closed. The next thing I felt was the entire truck vibrating for a split second. I could tell that it was a violent impact. The strange thing is that there was absolutely no loss of forward momentum from the impact. We were near full GVW of 80,000 lbs. I'll never forget that sound and feeling as long as I live. Right after the impact, it happened so fast, I didn't even know what had happened. We had slid on wet pavement, went airborne in the median, and into oncoming traffic west of St. Louis just west of a way station. After hitting a vehicle head-on, our semi had flipped over and was now facing to the east. Suddenly everything was quiet. I was in shock. John asked if I was okay. I said, "Yeah, let's just get out of here. I smell smoke." I had sat on the passenger's side of the floor during the wreck. Now the roof was a door for me to crawl through on my right. John soon followed behind me. There I was, standing in my socks on a wet highway mixed with diesel fuel. Smoke was coming from the hood. That was barely recognizable. I wasn't even awake enough to comprehend what had just happened and was in shock as well. I remember people running to the white pickup truck that we had hit, head-on, with fire extinguishers. It was like I was in a dream. I couldn't comprehend what was going on. I remember shivering and blood coming from my hand and mouth. When I got myself together, the fire was out. The next thing I remember was an ambulance attendant talking to someone on the passenger's side of the white truck. I could tell that she was consoling the person. I saw her mouth the words, "I know," with a compassionate face. The next thing I know, John and I were in an ambulance, headed for the hospital. I was looking out of the back doors through the windows as we were pulling away. I started crying uncontrollably, trying to imagine the fear that the people in the white pickup must have felt, seeing this semi coming right at them. I purposely left out a few gory details that nobody should ever have to see or even hear about. When we got to the hospital, I learned that all 3 in the truck hadn't made it. A man, his wife, and their 4-year-old daughter. I felt the same kind of guilt as the gentleman who mentioned giving CPR to the driver on the ground. From a previous comment above. Why did I survive a horrific accident that killed 3 people? I'll never forget the smell that morning, standing in diesel fuel mixed with rain and the smoke. As it turned out, that stretch of highway was nicknamed Blood Alley because of the deep grooves in the road. It was the site of many accidents. Many months later, I drove through that spot and saw that they had patched that stretch of highway. Wish it could have been done sooner. It was very painful to bring this up after all these years, but it serves as a reminder to give driving 100% of your focus, especially now with people texting, eating, reading while driving. For God's sake, don't ever take even a small trip for granted. Story 3. I had some. I'm trucker in Europe, from Hungary. Crossing the channel from the continent to UK is scary. There are a huge number of illegal immigrants who just wait to climb on trucks and get through to the promised land, to Britain. From Brussels or from a French city, Lille, direction Calais, it is suicide to stop for overnight. In 2002, I was a rookie. I run out of my time and stopped for night break near Brussels. Next morning, I checked in to take the Channel Tunnel train near Calais. The French police controlled me, and they found 8 persons in my trailer. In the British side, if they find hidden immigrants, they fine you £2,000 each. There were many accidents. Immigrants stabbed drivers to death. Immigrants died inside trailers because loose cargo. There were suffocations when they climbed into tankers which are loaded with cold fruit juice. They build barricades on the motorway, throw objects at the trucks. The police powerless. They are doing nothing. I had a nightmarish experience in 2004. It was before Christmas. I loaded some cargo in Bucharest, Romania. After loading, I had to wait long for custom papers. Romania joined to the EU later in 2007. I got my papers in the last minute. The next day, Christmas. Go! Budapest, 900 kilometers, no motorway, bad, narrow, mountainous roads full with potholes. I didn't care my legal time. I just pushed as fast as I could through the night. It means 16 to 18 hours driving under those circumstances, plus the border. I just wanted to be home on 24 to 26 December. Then I had to continue my way to Spain. Around 2 in early morning, I was doing 90 kph. This is the max in Europe. A Romanian truck overtook me. It was an old Scania. It wasn't limited to 90 per kph electronically. I was very sleepy, just stared ahead. After a curve, I saw the Romanian truck stopped on the road. I just watched the traffic from the opposite direction, if I can bypass the truck. As I approached, I saw a twisted shape, some object behind the Scania. I thought it must be the remains of an exploded tire. I saw the driver getting out from the cabin with a chalk-white face. Suddenly I realized the truck hit a pedestrian. The disfigured something behind the truck was a human body. He was dead for sure. I saw half pair of the victim's shoe from 20 meters from the body. Meanwhile, a couple of cars stopped by the place, but apparently, there was not much to be done. Needless to say, I wasn't sleepy anymore, on the rest on my way. Story 4 was driving through bumfuck nowhere, Kentucky on a rural highway at like 1-2 a.m., and I saw a young lady standing on the side of the highway trying to hitchhike. As soon as I saw her, I got major creep vibes. I was like, hammer down, go, 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 go. In an area like that on a rural highway in the middle of fucking nowhere, I was like 100% there's a dude hiding in the bushes. You stop to see what's up, and she starts giving you a sob story and distracting you, so the dude in the bushes or tree line can sneak around, get the jump on you, and either stab you or shot you or just hit you over the head with a baseball bat, and then they throw you in the ditch unconscious or dead and take off with your truck or vehicle. And this was so in the middle of nowhere. It was an area without cell phone reception for 50+ miles. You couldn't see any city or house lights nearby or in the distance. It was such a middle of nowhere area from civilization. If you stopped and turned off all your lights and it wasn't a full moon, you probably would barely be able to see your hand at the end of your outstretched arm, if you could see it at all. It took my eyes a second to process what she was after my headlights hit her. And as I wasn't expecting to see someone in the middle of nowhere that late at night trying to hitchhike, I was like, is that a person? and she was standing there with her thumb up. I was like, oh fuck no, this is some you stop and get murdered vibes. Like it wasn't something I even thought about. When my brain processed she was indeed a person and had her thumb up, I just got the gut reaction of something is definitely wrong here, and got a cold shiver running up my spine. It wasn't until miles later when I was like, what the fuck? And started to process everything, that I was like, yeah, I would bet my bottom dollar that was some kind of trap to snag an unexpected motorist with. A kind heart who wants to help someone out, and her partner in crime is just waiting in the bushes to ambush a driver, and they steal his or her shit and leave them for dead or unconscious in a ditch dozens of miles from any kind of help.